Senator John Fetterman has been at the center of attention for quite some time for a number of reasons. The guy's 6'8".
He looks like Shrek.
And he weighs over 300 pounds. He is a mammoth of a man.
Yeah.
And he's really a gentle giant who is out there working on behalf of regular people, not perfect by any stretch, and we'll get to Ukraine. The fact of the matter is, he is, in terms of the U.S. Senate, outside of Bernie Sanders, he's as good as you're going to get. And that's not saying a lot. And the idea that they want to create, the GOP in particular, wants to create this scandal, and this is so typical of what goes on the Hill, exactly? That he doesn't want to wear suits, that he wants to dress like a regular Joe when he goes to work. But the truth of the matter is, he dresses that way because it's not easy for him to dress in a suit.
No, he's big.
He's really big. He's not just really tall, he's very broad.
He's just big. He'd have to go. Yeah, I get that.
So you can imagine wearing a suit every day.
Yeah, that's not good. No.
You want to say that he should make a better effort and maybe he could, dress like George W. Bush.
Well, at some point, I think also it did become somewhat of a gimmick with the hoodie.
Sure.
And I like I said, I agree with both things. One, I don't really care what he wears, and two, he could do a little bit better.
Well, the attacks that have come on him have obviously been very lowbrow, to say the least. And so he had a moment on the Hill the other day. Actually, I think this was, I could be wrong. This could have actually been this afternoon. I thought it was yesterday, but this was probably this afternoon, where he is talking about, the difficulties, but it doesn't negate the fact that he is able to do his job. There's an anti, it's not handicap. It's any deficiencies are seen as an opportunity to attack.
Well, but here's the thing. Let's be clear. Are the same people that are bothered by his wardrobe bothered by Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein and people
policies.
That forget policies. They're not even doing their jobs. They're freezing. They can't. Well, it's like we're running a hospice. And the fact that he's wearing a hoodie shouldn't be the most offensive thing. I'm more offended that Nancy Pelosi is running again at her age than I am about him wearing a hoodie.
So here's what a fake scandal looks like in politics. But here's where Mr. Fetterman brings, the humanity into all of it. So here we go.
This is my iPhone, and this is a transcription service that allows me to fully participate in this meeting and conversations with my children and interacting with my staff. I had a stroke about 18 months ago, and I have lost my ability to fully process language. And I like to think I was an empathetic person, truly. But until that happened, I've raised to a whole different kind of level as well. And it's profound to know, though, that I never really considered that without this kind of technology, I couldn't watch television. And I can't imagine if I didn't have this kind of a bridge to allow me to communicate with other people effectively. And, because I live in a political environment, I was ridiculed and made fun of because I wasn't able to process things sometimes or say things. So I'm so sorry that I'm sure many of you had to go through this kind of thing. I was lucky that I was lucky enough to go through my life, the vast majority of that, without this kind of disability that I have. But again, I can't imagine and how the challenges, and I admire everyone that has to kind of live with these kind of struggles and prevail over them. And the questions that I have is really more of an open-ended kind of question to everyone on the panel. How can we become more empathetic, more responsive, and more effective senators to provide the kind of support and services that anyone in these communities deserve to be a citizen here in our nation?
Fetterman got out of the vehicle that pulled up right in front of the Capitol mid-afternoon as the Senate returned from recess. He was wearing his familiar hoodie and gym shorts.
And that's exactly what's wrong in Washington. We're playing with the livelihoods of millions just so the GOP can just turn the screws against hungry Americans. Yeah, like I truly, I was very proud of my colleagues, because they're really about governance. That's what it is. And on the other, the House, the whatever they call themselves, Team America or whatever they call themselves, I just like, hey, bring your vote. Otherwise, they need to go hump a different leg.
John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, a senator from Pennsylvania.
Hey,
I work with him in D.C.
Drove all the way from Pittsburgh because we're a union town here too, as well. It's just an honor to be here. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like I always stand for the union way of life. I live across the street, from a steel mill and the steel workers, and I came from Pittsburgh because it's a union town as well. I will always stand for unions. My message to the CEOs is, it's $74 million, collectively earning that. How many yachts can they need,
Ask you about this news that Speaker McCarthy has formally launched an impeachment or has said he's going to.
Oh my God,
direct-
really? Oh my gosh, it's devastating. Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh no.
So we gotta run back to the office, but
So that is so funny to me that he did that. Ooh, I'm so scared. Yeah, the idea of them impeaching him is absurd. I think that when he was doing things other than the white hoodie outfit, for the most part, he seemed to be at least wearing a button-down shirt and some things. But yeah, I think he could do a little bit better. I don't love the shorts and the hoodie in the Capitol. It's not my jam. But of all the things that our Congress does, how he dresses, I don't think it would make my top 1,000 complaints. Like, I really don't. I got some way bigger fish to fry than his hoodies.
Let's get a few things out of the way. One, his ability to speak and form proper sentences has improved 1,000-fold to where he was a year ago. This isn't even up for debate. It's clear that he is, for the most part, recovered.
Yeah, well, no, and he says he still has some effect of disability, but
sure. Well, no,
so
it's perfect. But at the end of the day, where he is he capable of doing his job?
Clearly.
It's clear that he is. So let's just, that doesn't even need to be addressed. If you want to say that he can improve upon his decor in terms of his ensemble,
I think he could.
Yeah, I'm sure there's, does it have to be dramatic? Does he have to wear a suit every day? No, not necessarily. It's just not.
But you know what? When I look at somebody and I see them in all those different scenarios, that's somebody really doing their job. So he's actually standing on a picket line with the UAW in solidarity and drove there from Pittsburgh. And I just think that's somebody who's actually representing people and standing with people. So how could you say that's not doing their job when I look at someone like Dianne Feinstein in the Senate? And she's missed how many votes? And she's been in and out of basically cognitive awareness for the past however many years. And nobody's doing anything about that, but we're going to pick on Fetterman and he's recovering or is it I don't know. I think that what they really don't like, and he's a regular guy. They don't like that in their midst.
No. And that's what we put out on social media today, is that Fetterman dresses that way more so because he's representing working people, because that's how they dress. He doesn't dress in a suit and tie and pretend that he's being represented by oligarchs. He represents working class Pennsylvania.
They don't like that.
That's how he won the primary, because the two suits won Pittsburgh and Philadelphia respectively, and he won the rest of the state. And then he won the U.S. Senate because he is a throwback. He is a throwback U.S. senator to what the Democratic Party is supposed to be, which is supposed to be a party of labor. He is representing that core faction.
And he does. Clearly he is. And again, I don't.
For a U.S. senator to represent one of the most, if not the most, consequential swing state in the country right now, and represent it with such complete disregard for not even manners, but just this whole idea that you have to be hoity-toity in the U.S. Capitol when he knows that people are suffering every day in this country. You could act like he was going to Michigan for a photo op. Why would he? He didn't go there with a crew. He just went there because he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to get to the issue at hand with Fetterman.
And
why
there's
it's
nothing wrong with a photo op.
But as long as you're there,
Yeah.
as long as you're saying support labor, not ownership, which of course is a huge problem we have in politics. And most of the Democratic Party is not, it's one thing to make a statement. There's the Democratic Coalition and Occupy Democrats and all of these think tank organizations that are funded through DC are all going to say, oh, we stand with labor. Yeah, they'll stand with labor for 24 hours. But when ish really hits the fan, then you'll really see where they stand.
When it starts to, you'll start to know whose stock portfolios are being affected. And when that starts to happen, that's when they're, they change their tune.
100%. Now, where does the problem actually lie with Senator Fetterman? Now, he was doing an excellent job at clapping back at these idiots all throughout social media, giving him the business about you're not dressing properly. I mean, he really knows how to fire back, and it may not even be him. It may be his staff, and they're doing a great job.
No, it's him, and they're it's them, but they've learned it from him, and it's because someone like him, he's been dealing with that his whole life. People not liking how he dresses or what he wears. He has zero F's to give about that.
Now, we didn't freeze frame the last tweet that was put up, but if you guys saw it, it specifically talked about how he called them jagoffs for holding up what could potentially be another, an issue with passing the stimulus bill and being able to run the government properly when, in their mind, the reason that they're holding it up is because of Ukraine. Senator, that's not a flex. In fact, you have the complete opposite of the intended effect. Bragging about funding for Ukraine is not good.
No.
Not good at all.
No.
In fact, it's so bad that you completely defeat the purpose of even attempting to make a point here. Why is that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, we have given, despite what the numbers on paper actually are showing us, in reality, we've probably given in excess of $1 trillion to Ukraine at this point. To even wrap your mind around that type of money is crazy. That's just one. Number two, compounding interest, which will be in the hundreds of billions before it's all said and done, maybe another $1 trillion.
But and it's very profitable. That's very profitable.
Number three, you just saw on 60 Minutes the other day with Scott Pelley, President Zelensky said, we are not negotiating with Vladimir Putin, which means forever war continues. And if that's not enough, you had a climate march in New York City the other day where tens of thousands of people were in the streets marching for their lives because of the climate crisis. Who's the biggest emitter of carbon footprint in the entire planet?
That would be the military-industrial complex.
And who is responsible for the war in Ukraine? Yes, Vladimir Putin and the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is this is a very profitable situation. And even from Putin's perspective, I mean, again, two things can be true. He can be a bad guy, but what he is an oligarch. In fact, he's the wealthiest oligarch in Russia. So
some say he's the wealthiest oligarch of them all, which could be possible.
So point being that when people say, well, why would he do that? Does he want to take over your? It's like you're trying to reason capital as if it isn't just its own thing. Like there are people that the war is the thing, right? Like there is no win. Now they both need to find some sort of like graceful exit, but it's not. Putin, I don't think ever wanted to take over Ukraine. Like that wasn't really the goal. I mean, there's a lot here, people. And unless you know the history going back to at least 2014, preferably 2006 regarding Ukraine, you really don't understand what's going on. And I would suggest people, if you want to know what's going on, Medea Benjamin has a good book out called The War in Ukraine. And it's someone else wrote it with her, and the name is escaping me. And it's very short. It's a brief book. It'll explain to you at least the basic history. Please educate yourselves, people, before hanging a Ukrainian flag in your house, please.
I think a lot of people also don't understand exactly how much military spending Russia actually does compared to the United States.
It's
like 10%.
It's not.
So when you think about the fact that we have, again, on paper, There's no telling how many there really are. But on paper, we have over 800 military bases on the planet. I believe Russia has like a dozen.
Right,
So,
like it's not even a comparison.
So when you think about how much money we spend in terms of the military, in terms of the military-industrial complex, and what that actually looks like, it's pretty insane. And the amount of waste that goes into it. The fact that you're already hearing the rumblings about BlackRock and Vanguard and what they're up to in Ukraine. Basically, the demolition of this country has been laid at the feet of these mega private equity firms that are going to get all the contracts, that are going to get, this is big business.
It's money. But so
it's big business.
Putin definitely wants to take over Ukraine. He literally said the Nazi regime needs to be taken down. I'm not falling for it. So again, this is where multiple things could be true. I don't think that the intent is to take over all Ukraine. Again, I would suggest reading this book or doing some research into history. However, there is a very large force of Nazis in Ukraine. That's who we're sending the military money to. That's who we're arming. We're arming the Nazis in Ukraine. That's who's fighting against the Russians in the Donbass region. Like, this was a civil war problem prior to Russia's invasion. Like, this has been going on for a long time, and a lot of it has to do with Ukraine and their non-willingness to, adhere to the Minsk II agreement, whatever that one was. Again, like, there is a very big history here. And we also, and us via NATO, are huge proponents of this. There are so many things we could have done to stop this from happening and chose not to. And we continue to choose not to stop this because it's profitable.
And that's also the thing that when somebody points out, whether it's Brian, and we appreciate it, Brian, how much Nazis are in Russia, again, that's not the issue here.
Multiple things are true.
Multiple things are true.
That's what I'm saying. It's not an either or.
The reason why Putin is not intending to occupy Ukraine, nor are any other countries intending to occupy other countries. You want to know why? Because it's not cost effective. Why do you think the Soviet Union collapsed?
Right.
It was too expansive, and they too had an unconscionably large military reach in the world like we do. Why do you think our dollar is fading in terms of its value? We have overextended ourselves around the world. We are the world police. It can't last forever because financially it can't work.
And that's why you see things like BRICS and these things. Like, we're being phased out. We're being phased out.
Trump could get back into the White House on this issue alone. The idea that Trump is saying point blank, the second I get back into the White House, I will broker peace with this war, because he really wants his Nobel Peace Prize. He'll broker peace, and we will no longer be sending hundreds of billions of dollars a month to Ukraine. Do you know how well that plays with the electorate across the board outside of the Ukraine flag-waving Democrats? It's pretty damn positive. So don't deny the reality of where we are. Could you even imagine what would happen if President Biden said we need to send 20,000 troops to the Russia-Ukraine border?
Well, that's what they're getting towards.
Think about how far we're away from that.
Yeah, that's what we're getting toward. Brian, I seriously suggest you get Medea's book, or you watch some stuff about the history of what's going on there, because it really is complicated. We draw these lines, these arbitrary lines around plots of land, and say to people, okay, now you're a country. But when, a chunk of that country identifies as Russian and part of another country, this is why we have problems in Afghanistan.
Brian,
we're making up countries.
Brian, I'm going to keep it as simple as I possibly can, as I do for everybody, when it comes to why do people engage in any type of warfare on this planet? It's very simple. Corporate special interests.
And greed.
That is the end of the discussion. Do you know how much rich material wealth is in Western Ukraine? In the trillions of dollars, and it's not even uranium alone. It's cobalt, it's wheat, it's so many different resources. This is no different than us going into Iraq, going into Syria, going into Libya, going into Yemen. it goes on and on. This doesn't end. But it's all about the natural resources.
Yes.
And again, there are 3 countries on this planet that decide everything: us, Russia, and China. It has been that way for God knows how long.
And it's really mostly us, because we're the ones that always want to be the world police. You don't like my music. I actually think that, yeah, but the thing is that we're not talking about the fact that huge populations in that chunk of Ukraine and in places like Crimea wanted that, voted for that. That was what they chose. And chose to completely disregard, when I say we, I mean like Western we, European we, NATO we, chose to completely disregard that. So when you say that those people are going to be part of Russia, they wanted that. Again, there is a very complex history here between the eastern part of Ukraine and the rest of Ukraine, and it's complicated.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand, and they just think, oh, the poor Ukrainians. Yes, that's true, the poor Ukrainians. But it isn't.
If there's anyone who needs sympathy in this entire equation, it's the Ukrainian people.
Right. They're just stuck in the middle.
They are not only stuck in the middle, they are being led to slaughter. They are going to be killed. You have at least, again, on paper, 500,000 Ukrainians that have been killed already. And you have the president who has no way of winning this war saying, I will not negotiate with this man. Why don't you see, this is where you know that it has nothing to do, and this goes to Brian and to anybody else in this chat, this is where you know that this has nothing to do with President Zelensky and had everything to do with us and basically NATO, which is our front group. Here's the bottom line. If he attempted to negotiate with Putin, and Putin in the United Nations is basically saying, I need this, this, and this, and he would look like a fool on the world stage, then there is leverage that is created. But they don't want that, because that's not the goal here. The goal is to keep this going as long as humanly possible, because this is blood money. It is so lucrative. If another 500,000 Ukrainians have to die, so another $1 trillion in money can be printed to be sent to the military-industrial complex, they will do it without hesitation.
Okay, do they want our support? Now, that's an interesting question, because the Ukrainian people probably need a lot of aid and a lot of help right now because their country is getting destroyed. That's not who we're helping. Correct. Okay? We're helping their military continue to do this. So we're not helping the Ukrainian people. So do they want our support or not? I don't think they want what we're doing. Okay? Because what we're doing is facilitating the war. If we didn't keep this up, they would have no other means to keep this up. The only reason that they get to fight to the death to the end and doing things that aren't even like, within all sorts of like post-Geneva Convention allowances in terms of like all sorts of war weapons and stuff, like they wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't allow it.
Statistical analysis dictates. And again, this is from an American populace that is completely ignorant, woefully ignorant to the realities of our foreign policy.
Please research the history.
We are only given a very small percentage of information in terms of what's actually going on. But you know what can't be denied? The overwhelming majority now believes that this is a pointless exhibition. Whatever this is going to lead to is only going to lead to more death and more profit for the richest people in the world. And that is it.
It's not going to.
That is it.
Yeah.
So when you hear who I have been saying since January 20th, 2021, President Blinken, when he goes on TV and tells you that the Russians are on the run and the Ukrainians are winning, he is a mouthpiece for the military-industrial complex in NATO. That is what his role is as the Secretary of Defense. But in reality, he is really calling the shots. If the President of the United States was really calling the shots, he'd be the one out there saying it. Instead, you have President Blinken saying what he's saying. And do not ever, under any circumstances, say that you care about the environment and you care about where this planet is going and support this stupid, endless war. One of many that are still going on, but just the one that's up top of mind right now.
Yeah.
Because nothing is pillaging and destroying this planet more than this. And the ecological, environmental, and economic destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You can't even begin to wrap your head around that. And for any nincompoop out there who thinks that Russia did this to sabotage themselves, this is how they trade their oil to Europe and other parts of the world. Do not buy into the propaganda that is sold here. And I have no doubt that Russia sells stupid propaganda to their own people.
Of course. But again, it's another oligarchy. It's not like they're no longer communists, right? They're just another capitalist. They're just a less rich version of us. That's all.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.